The first article in today's paper is entitled, People Need to Wake Up. No Kings Rally Held in Fall River, part of a national movement. This is our country and we have a say in it, said Kevin Costa, organizer of the No Kings Rally in Fall River that drew a big crowd Saturday, October 18th. Costa, state Democratic committeeman for the 1st Bristol and Plymouth districts, praised the crowd gathered along William S. Canning Boulevard for the latest No Kings rally. He said that as a political scientist and through his work with Indivisible and Our Revolution, he's lived in countries that have been in the process of democratizing, and he was impressed with both the quantity and the quality of the turnout at the rally. At that time, there were 150 and 200 people, with many attendees carrying American flags and signs and waving to passersby. The protest began at noon and was scheduled to last until 2 p.m. It was a peaceful gathering and part of more than 2,500 protests planned nationwide on Saturday. USA Today reported that No Kings organizers were predicting it to be the largest one-day protest in modern American history. There was also a No Kings rally held in Swansea from 10 a.m. to noon, with a crowd gathering at the corner of Route 6 and 118 at the turnoff for Swansea Mall Drive. In Fall River, the response was overwhelmingly positive, with drivers honking and waving their hands as they drove by. There were some shouts from passing cars, with one driver yelling at gathered protesters to get a expletive job. The protesters, whose personal reasons for demonstrating varied, expressed their opposition to measures being taken by the Trump administration. I can't stand it anymore, one protester, who gave her name as Sandy, said. I had to do something. Another protester, Carrie Cusick, said, I'm Jewish, I'm older, I'm female, and I'm totally otherized. I'm afraid, but I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. There was also a trumpeter present who was later joined by a trombonist playing a variety of songs such as This Land is Your Land, Amazing Grace, and Battle Hymn of the Republic, in addition to the national anthem. Another protester who wished to remain anonymous said, People need to wake up and see what's going on. Lindsay St. Armour told the Herald News that what got her to attend on Saturday was the descent of our country into fascism. It happened so fast. There were some in the crowd who attended wearing costumes. There was a Tyrannosaurus Rex present, as well as a panda, a dancing unicorn, and others. One young protester, Fiona, was dressed up in a costume as well and said she was protesting because I thought that I would have more rights, but I guess I don't. A man who wished to be identified as Joe America said he is 70 years old and spoke of his father. My dad was a World War II veteran, wounded, and received the Medal of Valor, he said. What's happening right now is not what he would want. Sean Taylor, who identified himself as a social worker, spoke of change. The definition of a social worker is an agent of change, and I truly believe in that, Taylor said. Many sign holders stuck to the No Kings theme, with other holding signs that said, We the People. There were even some signs based on the Star Wars show Andor, a story of the beginnings of the rebellion against the Empire in that franchise, with one sign saying a popular phrase from the show, I have friends everywhere. Costa also spoke of the differences between authoritarianism and democracy. There is not one person here who's forced to be here, Costa said. In an authoritarian regime, this wouldn't be possible. Costa spoke of a democracy as an act of civic friendship, saying friendship is integral to living a good life. Dignity and beauty to democracy, solidarity, empathy, and the idea that we're all in this together, Costa said. Those are beautiful things. Those are precious things. The second front page article is entitled, Councilor Floats Plan to Boost Affordable Housing. The city's affordable housing stock may be given a wider share of the market if the City Council adds a new ordinance imposing stricter terms around residential development to the city code. At the October 14th City Council meeting, City Councilor Sean E. Kedheim explained why the city, amid a housing crisis compounded by an ever-growing need for affordable housing, ought to privilege affordable homes with stricter regulations as stated in a resolution filed on September 22nd. While Fall River is teeming with new housing developments, few of these projects ensure that residents of all income levels have access to safe, decent, and sustainable housing, Kedheim said. About 30% of Fall River's housing stock is market rate. Massachusetts General Laws Chapter 40B sets regulations surrounding affordable housing through the state's Department of Housing and Community Development. Affordable units are subject to a long-term use deed restrictions and are limited in occupancy to income-eligible households earning no more than 80% of the area median income, which, according to 2025 Massachusetts Housing Partnership data, a single-person household would need to earn less than $69,200 to qualify. Rents are set so eligible households pay no more than 30% of its gross income for housing costs. The number of affordable units a municipality has is able to be included in the Commonwealth's subsidized housing inventory. Maintaining that other municipalities in the state have implemented ordinances and bylaws requiring a percentage of newly constructed housing units to be designated affordable, Kedheim said so should Fall River, citing concerns of gentrification. Kedheim alluded to the possibility of modifying zoning requirements in overlay districts as a way to expand development. Measures like 40B improve economic balance and stability, as well as equitable access to housing opportunities. But they also come with steep deed restrictions that protect affordability for at least 50 years. In Somerset, developer Mark Landry's residences at Slade Farm have 120 units, 30 of them designated workforce housing units, and the other 90 listed at market rate. Projects involving State Statute Chapter 40B are sanctioned and administered under the Executive Office of Housing and Livable Communities, an agency that strives to make housing more affordable across Massachusetts. In particular, the office encourages all towns and cities to meet a threshold of at least 10% subsidized housing inventory. Based on June 2023 data from the state's EOHLC, Fall River's subsidized housing inventory stock occupied 10.23% of the housing market. As of December 2024, the city's Community Development Agency has committed to 11 affordable housing projects in various stages of development scattered throughout the city that promise to bring 113 affordable units online. Among the most notable properties on that list is the St. Louis School, a Rock Street property under a purchase and sale agreement, and the former Notre Dame Rectory at 529 Eastern Avenue. Kedheim is calling on the Committee on Finance and the Committee on Ordinances and Legislation to convene with the city's administrators, city engineer, and planner Daniel Aguar, and Corporation Counsel Alan Rumsey to discuss the implementation of restrictions by way of an ordinance applicable to housing development in the city. Kedheim's resolution states that any new housing development project of 10 or more units must set aside between 10 and 20% for affordable housing. Additionally, developers must ensure these units remain affordable by virtue of a deed restriction of 50 years, modeling regulations on 40B stipulations. This is just to get the conversation started, Kedheim said at the meeting, and though it may not resolve all housing concerns for Fall River, he indicated a compromise could be reached after discussing the matter with the city officials. The resolution was unanimously referred to the City Council Committee on Finance. The third front page article is entitled, Swansea Residents Aim to Make Things Happen with the Latest Waterways Plan. A handful of residents turned up at the October 15th Harbor Advisory Committee meeting to share their concerns related to beach management, invasive species, and the impact of fertilizer on Swansea's nutrient-rich coastal waters when it came time to chime in about the town's 2025 Waterways Plan draft. Earlier this year, University of Massachusetts Boston's Director of Urban Harbors Institute, Kristen Udewek, and the Institute's Senior Research Associate, Kimberly Starbuck, partnered with Swansea officials, hosting open houses, offering public surveys, and conducting more than a dozen interviews with municipal staff and experts to create a comprehensive roadmap for decision-making related to offshore conditions. The plan will establish town-specific objectives in line with environmental standards, while posing recommendations that could affect the town's ability to secure grant funding, and will inform Swansea's future policies on public and private use of land and water at 2 zones along the town's shore. Updates to the plan that include preservation efforts and public education goals come at a time when Swansea's water quality levels have motivated citizen advocates to work alongside institutional researchers at the University of Massachusetts Dartmouth School for Marine Science and Technology. SMAS's Sarah Horvat, a research assistant, together with Dr. Micheline Labrie, an assistant professor and director for the Coastal Systems Group at UMass Dartmouth, have built a replicable model of Swansea's waterways compatible with the Environmental Protection Agency and the state's Department of Environmental Protection. Water quality testing at Compton's Corner, 195 Pinehurst Avenue, continues to be studied as part of a growing body of research fueling a deep dive into vetting solutions for increasing oxygen levels and supporting aquatic life in the Lee and Cole rivers. When we go forward, Harbor Advisory Committee Chairman Henry Elliott said, we're dealing with data, not anecdote. Though the town's website invited Swansea residents to provide feedback on a digital copy of the draft, Starbuck and Udewek assured those in attendance at the Wednesday night meeting that the October 8th deadline has been extended. Udewek said she and Starbuck have received 3 or 4 mostly positive impressions via email on the draft to date. The 20-minute presentation heard at the meeting named key topics the Waterways Plan aims to address. A rising interest in commercial and recreational fishing could be accommodated via a dedicated pier or reorganized moorings. Building coastal resilience ought to be prioritized with the threat of more frequent storms and flooding due to climate change. Providing residents and tourists access to educational resources could raise and solidify public awareness. The creation of a Coastal Access Committee, a body supported by Selectman Michael Boudet, who attended the July 29th meeting, could further help to oversee public access to the town's waterways. Making waterways safer for boating and navigation should rein in boaters speeding, said Mike and Stacy Paris. Jet skiers are ripping it up, said Stacy Paris, whose husband shared that their coastal property along Lee River attracts waterfowl. Upping supervisory staff at the waterfront may help enforce waterway etiquette, said Elliott. Swansea, he maintained, needs a full-time harbor master in the summer, but not in the winter. I saw him once this year, said Mike Paris. Bringing more residents down to the waterfront, students in particular, could usher in a new age of collective responsibility and could even lead to programs like safe sailing or boating courses. Other recommendations, like introducing oysters placed along the shoreline to control erosion, stabilize nutrient-rich waters, and protect natural resources, received criticism from Robert Place, who suggested oysters are like razor blades and added to the town's beach would surely minimize public access. He added that herbicide and pesticide levels in the water continued to be a worry he and his wife, Claire Place, frequently discusses. The Places suspect that 95% of their neighbors use fertilizer on their lawns and fear that even a staunch restriction on fertilizer may not be enforceable. Starbuck shared that the state's biggest concern with cities and towns' waterways was with fertilizer use. According to Udoek, Nantucket has tried to impose an outright ban on fertilizer, but was met with the difficulty when it came time to enforce the new rule. According to Horvath's water sample testing, the cleanest water is along Swansea's coast, with the poorest quality sample collections taken closer to the Mount Hope Bay boundary. I definitely think there is some impact, Horvath said. The tentative removal of the Coal River Dam, pending a special town meeting vote on October 27th to order the dam to be studied before the decision is made, was called a terrible idea by Harbor Advisory Committee Gary Lund. He referenced a similar dam removal project over the Kickamet River in Warren, Rhode Island, that to him made mudflats out of a pond. Starbuck and Udoek said comments heard at the meeting will be worked into the draft plan, and a finalized copy will be presented to the town's Board of Selectmen for final approval and sign-off. But the task of implementing plan recommendations according to Swansea's context as a smaller coastal town loom in the months and years ahead. I don't know how you can even educate people on all this. They don't care, resident Claire Place said. They're just trying to survive. This is last on their list. We can make things happen in Swansea if we want, Elliott said. Anyone wishing to provide comments may do so by emailing Kimberly at starbuck, S-T-A-R-B-U-C-K, at umb.edu. That's starbuck at umb.edu. This article is entitled, Whaling Museum Hosts Climate Events and Exhibit. Visitors to New Bedford and Fall River can explore art, history, and climate action during the New Bedford Fall River weekend, scheduled for October 24th and 25th. The New Bedford Whaling Museum is joining the celebration with a new exhibit and 2 climate-focused programs featuring author and activist Bill McKibben. The weekend is a regional collaboration led by Explore New Bedford and Viva Fall River, along with the Southeastern Massachusetts Visitors Bureau and the New Bedford Whaling Museum, according to a community announcement. The initiative highlights cultural attractions in both cities and promotes the accessibility of the area via this new South Coast rail line. This region shares a deep history and a bright future, Chrissy-Ann Tyrell, Executive Director of the Southeastern Massachusetts Visitors Bureau, said. This weekend invites residents and visitors alike to embrace the new South Coast Rail, explore both cities, experience our cultural landmarks, and see firsthand the innovation and collaboration happening here on the South Coast. At the Whaling Museum, the exhibit, Bristol County Incarcerated, opens October 24th, showcasing artifacts from the region's oldest jail system. That evening, the museum will host the Climate Future Film Festival, featuring 10 short films from 4 continents. Genres include drama, documentary, comedy, and animation, all exploring emotional and intellectual responses to climate change. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. on October 24th. On October 25th, McKibben will deliver the keynote address at the New Bedford Lyceum, titled Solar, Society, and the Shifting Climate. His talk blends science, storytelling, and solutions focused on renewable energy and climate justice. Doors open at 5:30. There's no better time to experience all that's happening across our region, Amanda McMullen, President and CEO of the New Bedford Whaling Museum, said. From world-class museums to seaside attractions, it's a perfect weekend to be a tourist in your own town, or discover it for the first time. The museum is open daily, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Tickets and program details are available at whalingmuseum.org. There is one obituary in today's paper, that of Charles St. George, 78 years old. Charlie passed away peacefully at his home in Somerset on October 17, 2025, surrounded by his loving family. Charlie was born in Fall River on April 30th, 1947, to Joseph L. Leon and Claire L. St. George, who both preceded him in death. He lived in Fall River until 2018 when he moved to Somerset. He is survived by his wife of 55 years, Suzanne St. George. Together they built a family that includes their daughters Michelle Dolphin and Audrey Vaught and 3 grandchildren. In addition to his immediate family, Charlie is survived by his siblings Robert St. George and Anne-Marie Menard. For his entire career, he was a dedicated certified public accountant and co-owner of Perry and St. George CPAs, where he gained many friends. Charlie earned degrees from both UMass Dartmouth and BCC. He was part of the Durfee High School graduating class of 1965. He also served in the National Guard. In his free time, he enjoyed golfing with friends and was a longtime member of the Fall River Country Club. Since childhood, Charlie and his family have been members of the Howland Beach Club in Westport, where they spent many summer days. Charlie and Sue loved to visit Maine. He also took pride in teaching his grandson how to fish. Visitation will be held on Friday, October 24, 2025, from 4 to 7 p.m. at Eau Claire Funeral Home, located at 690 South Main Street in Fall River. His funeral will be held Saturday, October 25th at 9 a.m. from the funeral home, with a funeral mass at 10 a.m. at St. Joseph's Church at 1335 North Main Street, Fall River. Burial will be private. In lieu of flowers, donations in Charlie's memory can be made to South Coast Health at Home, 200 Mill Road, Fairhaven. Online condolences are at eauclairefuneralhome.com. This next article is CBS releases excerpt from Epstein's accuser's memoir. CBS News released an excerpt on October 19th from the forthcoming memoir of the late Virginia Giuffre, one of Jeffrey Epstein's accusers. The release portion details a 2021 trip Giuffre took to the Louvre Museum as he prepared to testify against French modeling agent Jean-Luc Brunel in a Paris court. For a while, everything went as I'd imagined. I lost myself in the larger-than-life bronze and marble sculptures, texting my husband photos of the four captives, a quartet of soldiers in shackles, and of Hercules fighting an oversized snake, the excerpt reads. I climbed a flight of stairs, turned a corner, and froze. I know this room, screamed a voice inside my head. I've been in this precise spot before, 2 decades ago when I was just 17. Guthrie, born Virginia Roberts, was among the most outspoken of Epstein's abuse accusers. She played a critical role in the investigations that eventually led to criminal charges against the financier and his associate, Ghislaine Maxwell. She also filed a sex abuse lawsuit against Prince Andrew in 2021, alleging that she had been trafficked to the British royal family member by Epstein 3 times around 2001 when she was a teenager. Andrew settled the suit in 2022 and denied the allegations. On October 17th, Buckingham Palace confirmed that Andrew will no longer use his royal titles after being stripped of his patronage and military associations amid the lawsuit. Guthrie died of suicide near home in Negrigaby, Australia in 2024. Nobody's Girl, a memoir of surviving abuse and fighting for justice, was set to be released on October 21st. In an interview with CBS Sunday Morning that accompanied the excerpt's release, Nobody's Girl co-author Amy Wallace stood behind Guthrie's allegations. She added that Guthrie knew that names of people who participated in her abuse have not been made public. Wallace described the abuse Guthrie alleged at the hands of Epstein and Maxwell as going beyond sexual assault, calling a modern handmaiden's tale. Wallace said that the pair asked Guthrie to carry a child for them and sign away her parental rights. Interestingly, that was the straw that broke the camel's back for her, Wallace said. Wallace stated that she does not believe that Maxwell should receive a pardon from President Donald Trump. This woman participated in a sexual abuse, and she should absolutely not be pardoned. We've just about reached the end of our time. Once again, today's weather, abundant sunshine, 62 to 69 for a high, 49 to 56 for a low. And tomorrow, Wednesday, we're looking at a couple of showers, 62 to 69 for a high, 44 to 51 for a low. This has been Bob reading the Tuesday, October 21st, 2025 edition of the Fall River Herald. Thank you very much for listening and have a pleasant day.